Welcome back to the True Intent podcast. We're back with Henrik Wenøe for a third and final episode. And we've covered a lot so far, Henrik, from realizing your personal power, actually explaining NLP and new NLP, what you've been working with for the past 20 years, transitioning into how to lead yourself using these tools. Now we're at the third episode where we'll dive into how to actually lead others. And it's fantastic to have you back. And I think really a lot of people can relate to leadership in some way. I think all of us have at some point had a bad leader. But the beautiful thing about this today and what you've been working with is that leadership is everywhere. So I'd like to also first appreciate you and tell you that I'm really excited about the way that you guys have created this beautiful blend of personal leadership from yourself and your own perspective, but also how to create a life of fulfillment in your job so that you don't have to go to work and then your life starts when you finish your work or when you get retired someday or someday in the future rather than today. And to build on that little introduction, we've actually started doing business together. So now I'll experience all of this firsthand, getting sucked into a lot of these amazing perspectives. This episode is going to be especially relevant for business people, salespeople, sales leaders. And I'd like to kick it off by a quote from Daniel Pink. It is human to sell. Why is it human to sell, Henry?
As we talked about in the preparation here, is that either you sell or you die, you can say. And again, I know some people hate the word. And I think that's because a lot of people have been trained to sell in a way that's not human. And I think our ambition in Acuity World and with our partners around the world have been to basically introduce a natural way of selling, a way of interacting within organization and also between organization and their customers in a way which make it pleasant and actually value creation will happen in that way of interacting, so that selling is not something you force upon something, but it basically, when it's really done right, you could say that you're actually not selling, but you are assisting, helping people to buy what they want and need faster than they can do themselves. So you can help them to become qualified buyers. I think for me that's really the ambition. But again, if you say, wow, we are not training salespeople, we are training biologists, then nobody would know what we are talking about. But I think that's actually our ambition, is to train leaders, to train their people, to go out and help customers buy what they want and need so that they can accomplish their outcomes in the world.
Yes. And we are going to dive much deeper into this whole business context. But just to set the stage a bit in terms of sales, let's say you're not at work. How are you selling when you are at home or you hang out with your friends? Just so that everybody can relate to, this is not just a sales tactic, but this is a way of living and being in life and being in connection with other people.
You can say that I don't know if I'm using the word selling, but let's use that for all intent purposes.
Yeah.
I think when you interact with your friends, with your families, you're communicating. And I think the purpose of communicating is to influence the people around you. And it can be a simple thing like bringing you a cup of tea. It could be, wow, should we go out and have dinner tonight in a restaurant or eat at home? It could be, who is doing the cleaning this week? It could be, wow, where would we like to go on holiday? So all these everyday things is about selling. It's about basically helping people to agree with you to do something together. So again, of course you can force people to go on the holiday you want, but it will not be a very pleasant holiday. So if you have the skill set of selling your ideas, having people buy into what you want, not at their cost, but because, again, you and them end up having a better experience, I think then it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's also what Pink is pointing to when he says selling is human, because it's happening every day, every hour, every minute. Every time you interact with another person, you are either successful in getting to a common agreement about what to do next. And when you do this well, it will be pleasant to interact and work with you. If you are not selling, you are forcing or you're using coercion to in a way push people in a direction, and I think it's not pleasant, and I think long term it's not really sustainable. And again, people also do that all the time because they don't really understand how can I be selling instead of forcing my ideas. And I think that just create all kind of conflicts, and that's really not where we want to go and bring the whole system. So at home, at work, at anywhere, I think I would say the purpose of communicating is for the world to see and accept and buy into your ideas.
Yes. And if we talk a little bit more about what makes a sale sustainable from in a business context, but also, I've been selling my whole life, and I've never really wanted that classic title of the sneaky salesman. And I feel like it often had a bad rep.
Yeah.
But if you find the right way of selling, the ethical way, so to speak, which I also read about in your book, Satisfaction Selling, then there's a different driver. Can you put some words to what makes a sale sustainable? I
think the one and the only way you can make a business relationship sustainable is to make sure that it creates values for the customer and for you. So it's not enough that you hit your numbers and that you get your outcome if the customer is not getting value from the interaction. And it's not enough that the customer get what they want if you don't get what you want. So there needs to be value on both sides for it to be sustainable, and to make sure that there's actually value from the customer's perspective. I often advise to start there, to make sure that what the customer want and what you can do actually will end up creating more value for the customer than they're paying for your product or service. Because when that happens, most likely they will come back and buy more and maybe even bring their friends. And that's what makes it sustainable.
Yeah.
So if you can sell once to one customer, that will save the day. But if you can help a customer really get what they truly want and need, then you have created a customer for life, and that's what makes it sustainable.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you don't know what to look for, then you might think that you are actually selling what the customer wants, and you're selling them the dream they want to go to. But if you haven't really discussed what that dream looks like, I've had customers in B2B where I was so good at pitching and selling that I sold this great project, and you can succeed on the short term, and I did. But as a consultant, you're not a part of the organization. So if there's nobody to actually run with it, wanting to run with it after you're gone, then it ends there.
Yeah.
So what can people do, consultants or salespeople in general, to make sure that what they are selling is something that is repeatable and that there are somebody that actually believes in moving this vision forward once you've implemented the first couple steps?
I would say in our new book, Satisfaction Selling, we are talking about the 7 C's of satisfaction selling. And actually the first C is centering. It's really about understanding what is it that you would like to achieve. Why are you showing up at this customer's doorstep today? So you need to have that in place. And then you need to, in a way, forget about it for a few moments, and then have the skill set to actually ask the right question so that you can access the dream of the customer, so that you can understand what is it that the customer truly want. So instead of projecting your dream onto the customer because you think your ideas is fantastic, you say, well, I know my dream, I know what I want, but let's forget about that for once. And then just go in and say, what is it that you want? What and why is that important to you? And what value would that create for you? So that when you understand that, now you can go back and revisit your own dream and say, wow, is there actually a fit between these two dreams? Yes, no. so that you as the sales professional, you're the person who are going to say yes or no to this deal. It's not the customer. I think a lot of salespeople, they work from this idea that the customer decide whether we should work together or not. I think that's not smart, because in a way you give away your power to an external vendor.
Yeah.
I like salespeople to go in with this sense that, wow, I'm in power. I decide whether this is going to be a business, whether there's going to be a business deal or not. And I do that because I know what I want, and I have the mindset and the skill set to access what the customer truly want. And when there is a match, then I know, okay, we can actually create a win-win here. So now it's worthwhile creating a solution. And when you create a solution that actually brings value to the customer, it becomes very difficult for them not to buy. It also, again, eliminate all these, all the need for handling objections, all the need for knowing how to close the deal. I don't want salespeople to close any deals. I want them to be able to set up the system so that the customer close the deals. And that's why, in a way, I think what we're doing is actually not selling. We're helping people to buy what they want and need so that they can get to where they want to go.
To me, you're helping people achieve their dreams.
Yes.
And you're basically coaching.
Yeah.
Not only salespeople, but everybody within the sphere of how Acuity World does business.
Yeah.
And teaching coachees to coach other. Like, selling is basically coaching.
You could call it that, but for me, again, I think, again, as soon as we put the label coaching on, you run the risk that people go in and say, wow, coaching is defined by... So for me, again, I say what we do is satisfaction selling.
Yeah.
We are basically helping people achieve their ultimate outcomes, and that's what we are doing. We are using similar techniques as coaches would do to do coaching. We are doing a lot of different things in the satisfaction cycle universe to make that happen. We are using a lot of questioning techniques. We are using a lot of the same things a good coach would do. But for sure, we are also doing a lot of things in satisfaction selling, which is not aligned with what typically is known as coaching. Because typically in coaching, I would say 9 out of 10 coaches, they start out from this question. What is the issue? What is the challenge you would like to overcome? So a lot of coaching techniques start out by identifying the problem, what's not working, the challenge. And we don't do that in satisfaction selling. We have actually introduced a method here which is about starting where the problem isn't. And I think that's also what leads to this method being really ethical on a much deeper level than what you see in many other approaches.
Okay, we will dive much deeper into the satisfaction cycle and all the principles behind satisfaction selling. And if you listen to any of the other episodes, you might also have been introduced to the framework of not believing in problems, but helping people achieve their desired state. And this is the groundwork and the fundamentals of how you've worked the past 20 years, and what sets you apart also in the way you look at new NLP versus traditional forms of NLP. But we've talked a bit about sales now, and made some definitions. Let's do the same for leadership. What is good leadership, Henrik?
Well, I think I remember a quote, and I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but I think the art of leadership is basically to help people do what they want to do because they want to do it.
Yeah, Dwight Eisenhower.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So I think again, and that when we see very good sales leaders, that's exactly what they do. They are not forcing. They're not in a way manipulating negatively their salespeople to do their work. They find people who actually want to be a part of the organization because their values is aligned with what the company is doing. And from there, they help those salespeople go out and help customers getting what they want. And when you know how to set that system up, it becomes one strong pull towards a common desired outcome. And I think that's what sales leadership is about. It's not what normally happens, but I think that's what very good sales leaders, they understand, that they understand that that's actually the essence of their job. To remove the friction so that salespeople can use their time to actually create value for their customers. Yeah. I don't know if I can say it any more clearly or than that. Yeah.
I'm curious to know what made you focus on leadership and in specifically sales so much. You've worked 20 plus years within this frame and know a lot about it. What is it that is, I don't know, so exciting about sales from your perspective that you want to spend the rest of your life teaching this?
You know, I have been in sales for more than 30 years. So I think that's a part of the reason. We have done leadership training for the Danish army. We have done training for the public sector. We have done training for R&D departments, for production leaders. We have done leadership training for all kind of leaders. And again, I've just come to realize that when I look back at the different projects we have been running, is that every time we have done projects for sales leaders and salespeople, we often see that we end up creating really, really deep value. So I said to myself a few years back, okay, I have 10, 15 years back. Where can I have create the biggest impact? And say, why not focus on where I have seen the greatest success? And that's why a few years back we really, in a way, refocused Acuity World's attention to really say, what we want is to go out and help people working with customers to be much more productive and effective. So that's why we are now having this laser sharp focus on that. That's where we want to spend the next 10, 15 years. That doesn't mean that we cannot also help other people, but that's not really what we are targeting. Yeah.
It makes sense, and I'm asking also because I feel like the area of sales, you know, it's not because we don't have sales tools and training and companies that are helping people elevate their sales, but I believe that the way you're doing it is very different. It builds upon some of the principles that you've learned in sales, but there's also some ways that you really distinguish and take a whole different approach that gives people, salespeople like myself and others, something new, something fresh, something different that makes selling a satisfying experience, because it doesn't have to be, oh, please just take the, like, selling is more than just pushing products. And that is the distinction that I feel like you really shine light on. So we're gonna dive a little deeper now from just quickly, we've talked about it in the previous two episodes, but going from personal leadership to leading others, what does that transition look like?
I think the way I talk about personal leadership is on these 4 levels. The first one is on the ontological level, as we have touched upon earlier, where it's really about how can you lead yourself home to really operate from your own core, yourself, and then from there, setting outcomes, creating your own intent. And then I talk about doing the same with the people you want to lead. So as a leader, there's a very well-known leadership model called situational leadership, which is based on this idea that if you want to be an effective leader, you cannot have the same leadership style in every situation. You need to adapt to the situation and to what's actually needed. And so should you be more an instructor, a trainer, a coach, or a delegator, we are taking that idea a step further and say, wow, maybe it's not enough to just adjust your leadership style to the situation. You also need to be able to adapt it to the individual which is in front of you. So that's why we call, even when you lead others, we also label that as personal leadership. We call it as how you lead the person in front of you as they are, as they think, so that there's a fit in the way you lead with the person you want to lead.
Yes, this reminds me of a concept you introduced called other people's model of the world. And I remember, frameworks within the mismatcher versus the matcher, the internal versus external reference.
Yeah.
Can you give some insights to what this means? What are we actually looking for in terms of actually understanding another person's model of the world?
Yeah. Yes, again here, if you have a team of 10, 15 salespeople, there will be different things that actually drives and motivate them. And I know this because I have been leading different sales teams. And again, you can almost count on that they are not motivated by the same thing as you're motivated by. So having an interest and simply ask them, so why are you here? Why did you decide to spend your life in this organization? So you don't even need to guess, you can just ask. And then people will tell you.
Will they though? Do
Yes.
they know? Do they always have the answer to that question?
Most people know.
Okay.
Some people say, wow, because we are the leading company in this area, and I really find that, wow, this is really exciting. So they like the technology or the products. Other people say, wow, because I find that here I can really help people achieve better outcomes. And some people will say, wow, because I need to make a living, and I think here I can earn money. So people have different drivers. And knowing that about each individual salesperson give you a lot of insight into how to interact with that person. Then you can notice for what kind of mental filters or structures are they having. So is it a person who is really focusing on getting an outcome or avoiding failure? And that also have an impact on how to interact with that person. You talked about the mismatch. Some people tend to be very agreeable. Some people tend to challenge and disagree. And if you have a salesperson who is what we call a mismatcher, you cannot tell them you have to do 5 sales calls a week and expect that they will love that. You need, in a way, to phrase it differently. You need to say, okay, if you really want to help customers the way you phrased, of course, you can do that from the office every day. And then a mismatch, you say, no, I have to go out and meet them. Okay, if you think that, then that's okay with me.
It's interesting because I know people and have friends where, and I might be that as well a little bit myself, with people come to say, you need to do this, and no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, having that, I probably, when you're listening or watching now, try to think of somebody that you know that might always want to do it differently if you tell them to do something.
And again, if you don't pick this up as a sales manager, you will end up in a lot of conflicts and fights and so on. And you will think, wow, that's a difficult salesperson. Basically, it's you who don't know how to communicate with that person.
And this is basically also, from my perspective, the distinction between the old form of leadership and the new, or the shitty version of leadership and the good version. Because back in the day, leadership was the carrot and the stick, right?
Yeah.
And in today's environment, especially with the younger generation coming up, if they don't feel seen and heard and appreciated, they're going to find something else to do.
Of course. Yeah. So again, when it comes to leading a sales force, again, you need to understand that it's individuals you're leading, and the more you can speak to what's important to that person, the more you can interact with each individual in a way that actually fits them. So you don't lead them as though they are you, but that you lead them as though they are themselves. The less friction you will have in the system. And I think the better you do this, the more every encounter between you and your salespeople becomes sales training. Because when they see that you do that with them, you're basically teaching them how they can interact with their customers. Because it's the same thing. A lot of salespeople go out and interact with customers as though they are selling to themselves, but actually they are not. So, and understanding that is very powerful. It comes back to sometimes, some years ago, I was approached by a company, say, wow, we need to teach our salespeople to do presentation better, because we have done some study. We have looked at our funnel, and we see that we are losing all our opportunities at the presentation stage. So our presentation skills are not good enough. Could you please help our salespeople to improve their PowerPoint and their presentation so that we can basically get a bigger conversion in this presentation stage of our funnel. It's not about not being able to present. It's because they're presenting the wrong solution.
Yeah. So what did you tell them? How can they improve their presentations?
They shouldn't improve their presentation, but what they should improve is some steps much earlier in the funnel.
Yeah.
The step where they're understanding what the customer wants.
So they know what to actually present.
Yeah, because if they're presenting the wrong solution the right way, maybe they will have the customer buy once, but now we are back to something which is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So I think what I found in all those cases was that their salespeople was running around presenting to themselves.
Yeah, they're selling to themselves instead of to the customer.
They were presenting and selling what they would like to buy if they were the customer. Yeah. So what I basically, in a way, helped them understand was they need to go all the way back to the first step in the funnel where they ask the customer, what do you actually want? And then teach their salespeople to do that in a way so that the customer would be willing and able to actually share that information with the salesperson. Yeah. So that the salesperson could decide, is it worth actually moving this customer to the next stage in the funnel, or should we just stop here? So I want a funnel. Typically, when we look at different sales funnels, it's often described as something which go like this. Like, you start with a lot of leads, and then as you progress through the funnel, it becomes more and more narrow, and then people here end up becoming customers. Yeah. What I see is that a lot of funnels actually look like this, and then they come to presentation, and then they go like this. So they work on all these projects all the way. Yeah. They keep pushing it because the salespeople are being rewarded from having a fat pipe and funnel. Yeah. And then here, at the end, the customer say no. Yeah. And then they think, well, we need to be better at doing presentation, or we need to be better at closing, or we need to be better at handling objections. I say, no, you don't. You need to be better in this part of the funnel. You want a funnel to look like this.
I think a lot of people, including myself,
you understand?
Yeah, they will think about relationships. So relationship is very important. And I always thought that as well myself. Yeah. And I also believe that it is definitely an important element of this sales process to actually build rapport to a certain extent, where you can actually ask a customer, an individual, what are they actually trying to achieve, and they will share their honesty with you. Yeah.
But for me, again, you don't need to have a relationship to do that. You can't build a rapport without having a personal relationship with a person. So if you know how to organize yourself, if you know how to build rapport, if you know how to ask the right questions, people will be more than willing to share the information you need to have to understand whether you can actually help them. Because when they get the sense that, wow, you're not there to sell, you're not there to force your model of the world upon them, you're not there to make them buy what you want to sell. You're actually there to understand what they truly want. And people very quickly pick this up if you really have an interest in them and what they want and what is it that can create value for them. And when they understand that, wow, this meeting is about, he wants to help me get what I want, now people become very open. And they share almost everything. And then you can be honest with them and say, wow, actually what you want is totally okay, and I cannot help you. Or, wow, what you want is totally okay, and I can help you. And now you get the funnel which look like this. So in a way, you start out with a lot of leads, and very early on in the process, you narrow it down so that the project you are actually focusing your energy on also end and will lead to a deal or a customer. Because again, you have sorted out all the wrong customers at the beginning of the funnel. Yeah. And for me, that's sales leadership. That's to help salespeople get, the optimal funnel, not the normal funnel. And you can only do that if you know how to basically help the salespeople get the right mindset and the right skill set when they interact with the customers.
Yeah. So this is, from a strategic point, the beginning of a sales process. And you might think that, that sounds like a lot of time and work and effort to put into this, but also the distinction and difference is that when you're trying to make one sale once, in high value, especially B2B sales, you're trying to make repeatable, profitable growth.
Yeah, you want to bring in a customer, and then you want to bring in the right customers so that they stay longer. So it's much more useful to look upon the lifetime value of a customer instead of the first revenue they bring in buying the first product.
Yeah. And
It's too expensive to only have customer buy once, to only bring them in to become a shopper.
Yeah.
We want them to develop into becoming a client, or as we call, even a positive activist, a customer who is so happy that they come back.
Yeah.
And again, as we say, bring their friends. Because now basically you have a much bigger sales force than actually on your payroll. Of course, there's the 25 salespeople or the 200 salespeople in your organization, but there's also the 3,000 positive activists out there, which is doing your marketing and basically fertilizing the ground for the next customer to come into your system.
Yeah, and you introduced the framework, the customer development strategy in one of your books. I can't remember
it's
which
in the
one.
Positive Activist.
And the tools and frameworks that you've developed to help sales leaders to succeed in achieving long-term growth. And your latest book builds on top of the Positive Activist, and I'd like to go through these concepts of positive activism to satisfaction selling, and how that ultimately translate into the paradigm shift that you want, or that you are helping sales professionals trying to achieve. Can we start with the Positive Activist building on top of the customer development strategy?
I think the Positive Activist book is basically a book about this customer development strategy.
Yeah.
And it's based on this idea that if you want to create a healthy business, which create healthy profits, you can only do that in a sustainable way if you go out and create value for your customers. And when you do that, they will stay, and you will get higher level of customer satisfaction. And the book here describes how do you set up and structure how you lead a global sales organization to make that happen. And it comes down to how do you once a year set the outcome for the sales organization. Is it a top-down or a bottom-up process you're using? And what we are advocating for in the book is that if you go out and tell 20 salespeople next year you need to bring in a $1 million revenue. For some of the salespeople, that would be a fantastic goal. It would be spot on. It would just match, it would be challenging, but it will still be a realistic goal for them to go for. For some of the salespeople, it will be totally out of their league, and they will therefore become very demotivated. For some of the salespeople, it will be very easy because they could easily do 2 million, and for them, it's not that motivating. It's like also demotivating. So again, what we describe here is that if you want to really, in a way, create a sales team with 20 salespeople who are really optimal motivated, you need to find the right balance between how big goals and the each salesperson's capability. So maybe some salespeople in the organization, the new ones, they need to bring in 500,000, but some of the more seasoned salespeople need to bring in 5. And the more you can in a way personalize and differentiate it, the more each individual contributor will actually bring in and help the overall system to overperform, you can say. It could also be that if you could say, wow, you're actually a good salesperson, so maybe you should have some of the more difficult customers. Wow, you're not so experienced, you get some of the more easy customers. What I see in a lot of organizations is that the salespeople who have been there longer, they tend to keep the easy big customers, and the new ones, they are sent out, in the desert to find seeds out there which basically doesn't exist. So it starts there. So how do you actually set up a budget that people say, wow, this is challenging and it's doable? So if you can find that balance, now you have a motivated sales organization. And then as the year progresses, you need to have some kind of structure in place. You need to have some regular review meetings where you can go in and make sure that you're still on track, that they are focusing their energy on the right projects. And I think that's what the sales leader in my book is supposed to spend their time on. Next to, of course, also going out and actually do co-visit with the salespeople so that they can see that are they actually doing what we want them to do also when they're facing the customers. But in this book, we basically describe the whole structure you can set up so that you end up getting a funnel which is actually represent reality and not just dream thinking from the salespeople. Because a lot of funnels are basically filled up with shit because salespeople are being rewarded from having things in the funnel, but it doesn't represent what's actually happening in the real world. And that's why a lot of these CRM systems are not really effective, because we talk about shit in, shit out. So you need to, in a way, set up the system so that what's in the funnel is actually a representation of what's actually happening in the real world. And now it can become very, very powerful leadership tool.
Yeah, and it's I think come to think of it as a cultural shift as well, because a lot of sales organizations and individuals have just been riding their own horse. And you mentioned the more senior salespeople and sales leaders, they are taking all the easy ones for themselves because now they've worked a long time and from bottom up, and now they deserve to just chill.
Yeah.
But if we want to really move a company forward, we need to do it together.
Yeah.
And I come to think about that transition also, and relationship between sales and marketing. Do you see that culture of a lone ranger in the sales organization translates into the issues that might be happening when you need to cooperate between departments?
I would say, again, whether you need Lonely Wolf or the Lonely Ranger, or you need a team, it can be very different from industry to industry, depending on how complex sales you are working with. I would say, if you're into very simple transactional selling, maybe you can survive and even thrive having the Lonely Wolves. When you're into more complex solutions, you need to build a culture that fosters teamwork.
Yeah.
And that also comes down to, how do you reward salespeople? Do you use sales bonus or not? Commission? And there's a lot of science pointing to that the way we use bonuses are not really promoting high performance. It's often sabotaging high performance. So because they are often very individual in its nature, and it's simply in a way you set up systems that prevent people from acting optimal. And I think it's crazy to view, but there's a lot of old habits in sales leadership. And that's some of the things we really would like to, we would like to update so that sales leaders start to lead as though their salespeople are actually human and not machines.
Yeah, I guess it's been a way of trying to help salespeople and employees in general take more ownership. I don't know, I come to think of, as an entrepreneur, if you don't run in the right direction for a time, then there's not going to be any money at the end. So like, I've always enjoyed knowing that whatever I do, what I spend my time doing, is equivalent to some value.
Yeah.
And I guess I can see that paradigm also in the way of leading salespeople to a bigger bonus if they make the sale.
But it doesn't work.
No.
It simply doesn't work. I think there's science that now point to that bonus can actually sabotage high performance. And I think where we see in sales that bonus are working is in very simple transactional selling.
Yeah.
So if you're in a call center and if I'm doing 10 calls, I get 1 sale. If I do 100 calls, I do 10 sales.
Okay. Yeah.
Then a bonus will work. But if you're working in industries where we often find ourselves, where it's more complex solutions, where you have sales cycles, which is 6 months, 12 months, maybe even 2 years, you need to set up a system where people are willing to do today what create results in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
And if you use a bonus system, that will distract people away from spending time on creating long-term growth, because they will try to chase the small, easy things, which are actually not what the company want and need. So in a way, you need to set up the system so that people become much more intrinsic motivated, so that they understand what is the right thing to do, so that we can actually create value for the customers, so that we end up also creating value for ourselves. So I have come to see that a lot of bonus systems are actually sabotaging the performance companies want.
So even though the intention might be good, it's not really working in that way. I just made
It's not only not working that way, it's actually lowering the performance. It's creating less performance than would have been without any bonus.
So how do you mimic or help people take more ownership? If you like, from my perspective, when I'm not employed at a company, when it's the first of the month, I won't be paid unless I've created value.
Yeah.
And I think this is my own conception that a lot of people, they just work at a company, and every time it's the first, they get their money regardless of what they're actually doing. So what they're doing is just drinking a lot of coffee, having a lot of meetings, and they're not really creating a lot of value.
Yeah, but again, it comes down to, if you in your leadership cannot help people in a way connect to what actually is important to them, to their core values, then you will not get action. No. I had an experience many years back when I was working in a diagnostic company, and I still remember. I think it was we had one of these big town hall meetings where the CEO was presenting, next year and our goals, and that year he would say, wow, next year we want to grow 17%, because that means that we will have a revenue of more than 1 billion Danish kroner. And you could see in his face that he was really happy about this 1 billion. It was really important to him. Yeah. Most likely because it was linked to his bonus. But then on our way back from that meeting, my Norwegian sales manager, she was really furious and said, do he really think that I care about 1 billion? Actually, it was almost offensive to her that was important. I think the reason why she get up 5 o'clock in the morning to take the first flight from Oslo to Bergen to visit the pathologist in that lab was not because Darko wanted to sell 1 billion. That's because she knew that if she was not going to have that meeting with that pathologist, she could not help him improve the protocols they were using, actually doing the diagnosis for the cancer patients. So if she was not doing that, people would die. That was why she got up in the morning. She wanted to actually help that pathologist improve their protocols so they could actually help people survive their cancer. That was what's driving her, and she was selling like hell.
It sounds like also a person
you understand?
Exactly. Like she actually got a little bit closer to what was important, because I think a lot of people, when they work through their life, at some point, I remember Jim Carrey said, I wish for everyone to achieve their biggest dreams and make all the money in the world so that they can see that it is not the answer.
I have nothing against people earning money.
No.
But it's really, what is the deeper driver?
That's not really what's going to make you happy in the long term.
No, you can say that we have been doing training for an international company selling hearing aid. And again, of course you can say, wow, we want to again bring in revenue, or we want to help audiologists really improve the life quality of their customers. Yeah. And that's what we are doing. Because again, if you cannot hear well, you lose the connection to the people around you. And it have a lot of side effects. It have been proven that if you are not really hearing well, it have a lot of impact on your mental capacity, and it have impact on your emotional health. Yeah. So again, going out, helping audiologists to actually help people getting hearing aids can improve a lot of lives. And what they told me was that on average, people are postponing buying hearing aid up to 7 years. So people are not buying hearing aid when they actually need it. They buy it 7 years after. So they're basically losing 7 years of their life because there's a lot of taboo around using hearing aid. So if they could help the hearing aid professionals becoming better at actually helping people, maybe they could reduce the 7 years to 2 years or maybe even 1 year, so that more people could get a more full life. And I think there's a lot of good energy in that.
Sounds like a satisfaction selling.
Yeah. You understand?
Yeah, I get it.
But I think again, I think really, and that this is the mindset shift. I think sales managers need to understand that if they want to have a sales force which kick ass, they need to have the right salespeople in that organization. And that need to be salespeople who really is aligned with the deeper mission of the company. It needs to be salespeople who want to see the change in the world the company is there to create.
Yeah.
And if you have a company that doesn't have a really meaningful product, then move on.
Yeah.
Find a job somewhere where you can actually make a positive difference for your customers.
Yeah.
And I think that's possible. Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think then money will come. You understand? So if you're doing the right thing, if you're working with the right customers, through time you will create value. And when you create value, you can claim value. But it has to be in that order.
Yeah, and the leadership in the organization needs to be able to be trained enough to actually ask the right question, listen to their salespeople, understanding their model of the world and what really motivates them to make sure that the goals of the organization correlates or aligns with what you are trying to achieve.
Yeah. So basically, what we are helping organization with is to setting up the bigger system so it's totally aligned, so that we start with the customer, understanding what they truly want, so that we can help them get that. Then we need salespeople who can support that. So it's all the way back, so we create one long pole and remove basically the friction in the system.
Yeah. And you have your personal leadership program, which is your education course, which spans over 4 years, where you basically go through all these different steps, starting from the individual, the personal leadership spiral, which you introduce, which is basically, can you share the foundational framework that you built this whole course up on?
Oh, well, I think
I'm
afraid to go into many details, but I think the reason why we have designed this personal leadership program is we want to have a place where sales leaders who really want to master the art of leading to the satisfaction selling method can get good enough that they can actually do it. Yeah. And I think, again, what we see in organization is that when there's good sales leaders who actually master the skill set and the mindset of the satisfaction selling, then it's much more easy for them to build sales team that can go and do it with the customers. And again, this is not something, I think you can learn a lot in a few days, but if you really want to master it, it's like anything. It takes time and effort to really get good.
Yeah, and it's not for everyone. You know, the satisfaction cycle, the sales model that's developed by your partner, Dr. Joseph Riggio. Yeah. He says that I read in the first couple of pages, it's learning from the 0.1 top sales professionals. And I think a lot of people are, I know it also from myself and the world that we live in, we want everything here and now. And if you really want to become world-class at something, I think the 10,000 hour rule applies.
I think if you really want to be, in the top 0%, yes. And I think also, again, spending maybe 20 hours, you can become really good. And of course, if you want to become excellent, then it takes more than 20 hours. But I think for most people, reading the book, Satisfaction Selling, and just spending 20 hours practice some of the fundamentals can already transform the way they interact with their customers and the results they will be able to perform. So you don't need 10,000 hours unless you really want to be a master in this field. Yeah.
Okay, so you've basically written a lot of books by now. Yeah. But if we take from the positive activist, from my perspective, that's kind of the leadership framework that you need as a sales leader to actually understand how to create sustainable growth, where this is more the deeper levels of tools and frameworks and how to actually work with it. And then if you get really excited about all of this,
then you can dive deeper.
Yeah, and obviously also you want to train it, because that is the distinction that I feel there you have on your course in compared to a lot of other different things. This is not just theory. We're not just talking about it. This takes practice, because a lot of salespeople, including myself, we've been practicing the problem-focused, and that's what we've been trained to our whole lives.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, it's a good place to start, and you can probably also practice on your own. But
I think our ambition with the satisfaction selling book, and also with the positive activity, is that we have really tried to distill our learnings from the last 30 years, 35 years, into a format where you can read the book and you can start to actually go out and do things with your customers in a more productive way. Then again, most likely, if you want to accelerate that journey, we will be more than happy to help you do that. But our ambition is that read the book, you will basically get the how to actually do this in a very detailed format. We have really had an ambition to do a book that is deep enough that you can actually do that, but not so deep that people cannot get through it.
So what would you say are the key skills that sales professionals need to develop to be able to apply the satisfaction cycle and the elements around satisfaction selling?
I would say that there is a mindset aspect to it, and there's a skill set. And the mindset is that they need to be able to operate from the belief that, wow, the customer needs me as much as I need the customer. So for me, that's a very fundamental approach. And also, again, so basically work from a position where they are mentally free, where they are not acting out of a need, but out of a want. So I'm doing this because I want to help audiologists help their clients get a better life. That's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it because I need to pay my rent next month. So they need to be able to organize themselves from this purely wanting starting point. And then there are some skills, and in the Satisfaction Cycle book, we talk about the 7 C's, which is basically the different steps you need to master to go through the process. And some example of that is that you need to, in a way, know how to connect to a person. And there are a number of classical NLP tools which can help you do that, matching, mirroring, pacing, using yes sets. So that there's a lot of techniques you can use to accelerate that. Then you need to understand how to be curious, to understand what's actually working for the client right now. And to do that, you need to understand how to ask what we call open green questions that actually help the person share the information you need to have. And so there's a lot of skills which really is centered around communication.
It reminds me of, we've talked about this earlier as well, but the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People introduces a lot of similar paradigms. And one of them, I think it's habit 4, is listening with the intent to understand instead of listening with the intent to reply. And I've taken this to me, and I've seen myself do it a bunch of times. I still do it. When I talk to people, I'm thinking about what to say next. Whereas the difference in actually, so one of the techniques I've been practicing after starting the course has been to backtrack what people are saying, because when you have to repeat what people are telling you, you really have to listen. And I can feel like I'm training the muscle, but I really spend a lot of mind energy just trying to listen to what people actually say.
And that's also why I think we are not teaching people to do what we call active listening. I think that's not working. What we want people to do is to do curious listening. We want them to actually be curious when they're listening, so that they get behind the words of the other person. For me, that's a whole different level of listening. And that's what you want your salespeople to master. And you can only do that if they start from the starting point of not needing, but starting from a clear want. Otherwise, they will sabotage themselves.
I really see Acuity World as the training facility for your mind. Like you would go out and work out your body to make sure it's good and strong. Same thing goes with your mind. You can read books, and that's good, but if you don't practice what's in the books, if you don't have a place to go to actually internalize the principles, then it's just a book.
Yeah. It's like reading a book about tennis.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fantastic book about tennis, but if you don't show up at the tennis court and hit some balls, then you will never learn how to play tennis.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with satisfaction selling.
Yeah.
I would say that I think this is a manual you can buy and read, and now you can actually go out, meet your customers, and start to, in a way, play tennis with them. What I really like about the satisfaction cycle, which is the core model developed by Joseph, is that it's one of the only sales models in the world you can actually show the customer.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be subtle about it. You can just say, wow, I read this book. It's really about how we can create more value together. Would you like to do it with me?
Yeah, exactly.
And the first thing I need to understand is that, wow, what are you doing well? What is it that's working so well that you would like to bring it into the future with you? Then I need to understand, where would you like to take this? So what is your dream? And what is it that you want and need so that can happen? Because if I understand that about you, then I know if I can actually help you. And if the answer is yes, wow, then we can agree upon how we are basically sharing the cake we are baking, so that you get full and I get full, and we can move on happily. So I think,
so simple.
And that's also why I say this is maybe one of the only truly ethical approach in selling today. Because it's not about being smart, it's not about tricking, it's actually about showing the customer or showing up at the customer, being totally transparent.
Yeah.
And that's why this is a very simple idea, but it's not that easy.
Why is it so difficult for people to show up?
Because a lot of people work from a need rather than a want. And I think this is why this is about personal transformation first, and then it's about transforming your customers.
Yeah.
It's not about incremental changes. It's about transformational change.
You need to be proactive in the way that your starting point.
But you also need to not just fix one small thing. Yeah. It's really a fundamental shift, which then again open up for a very different world. Yeah. So, in the old movie, The Matrix, they talk about the red and the blue pill. Yeah. I'm thinking about actually developing the green and the red pill, because this is really about taking the green pill. Yeah. The green, we use that as a metaphor of working, in the space of what's working and what do you want, rather than in the green part of the world, which is about finding and solving problem, all the negative stuff. I think it's about helping salespeople, helping sales leader, eating the green pill, and then come into the real world. The real world of opportunities.
Okay, I like that. So in the green pill, let's say they get it on the first day they come to, or the last day when they leave Acuity. What's in that green pill?
In the green pill, that's basically the mindset shift. That's what will allow them to get access to what's actually happening in the world, get out of their own head. So not thinking that dream is reality, but actually getting into the real world where they can hear what the customer is truly saying. so that they can connect to that, instead of just being with themselves.
Yeah, and being with ourselves is often we either think about wanting to get away from an experience we had in the past. We're either in the past or in the future, and never in the present moment.
Yeah. But actually, I think so. It's very seldom people are willing to eat the green pill the first day or the second day, because it means that they have to give up what have kept them alive up until now. What we are basically offering is a very fantastic life and not an easy life. And I think that's also why we see a lot of positive activists among our customers, because the people who have been trained to a certain level,
You can't go back.
It's very difficult for them to go back to a problem-based sales model.
Yeah, and I think
to a pain-based.
the distinction is just want to really make that clear.
Yeah.
It is because we're starting with the individual,
Yeah.
which it is not something we impose upon people. Like the whole framework and the whole way of thinking and looking at the world is that if you start with your own personal leadership, then you can really know what's important to you and share that with other people.
Yeah, and then also understanding that you are not them.
Yeah, and helping them do the same.
Yeah.
We're all different.
But that's also why, from the beginning, I labeled what we do in Acuity World the personal selling program, because it's really about understanding that it's individuals you need to bring along on the journey. Even though they exist in complex systems.
I love that. Okay. There's something else I really want to touch down upon, and it is in the spirit of finding your true intent, which is the whole theme of this podcast. In your books, The Satisfaction Selling, there's a framework called the trajectory of intent. Can you explain the power behind this and how it translates into effective leadership?
We use this model to explain the underlying psychological effect of using the satisfaction cycle. And the whole basic idea is that either it's the past which are pushing you into your future, or you are working from the idea that it's your future that is pulling you from the past and into the future. So what we do when we work with satisfaction cycle is that we are basically helping people to create a future memory of what have happened when they have been successful. And then we bring that information back to the present to design the process going there again in reality. So it's basically, we're based on this idea that we are using a technique in the satisfaction selling we call time sliding. And time sliding is a technique where by the use of how you use language, you can bring people into the past, into the present, or into the future. And what we want the people we train to be able to do is to basically help their customers do time travel, so that you can go back in time and learn from what had been working up until now, so that you can bring that into the future. But because that tends to create the emotional state which open up for actually getting in touch with the real dream. And when you then know how to bring the customer into their dream and have them not just look at the dream from the present, but actually mentally move into the dream and help them experience the dream and even the dream behind the dream, or the outcome behind the outcome, and give them the experience of already being there. Then from there bring them back. It's difficult from here now to believe that you cannot do it because you have already experienced it. So in a way, we help salespeople help their customer create a future memory, which will pull them into the desired state. That's basically what that model is about.
And you've used it also a lot in coaching to help individuals figure out what they actually want and what that future would look like.
Yes.
But it's built upon some experiences that they've already had, where they felt the feeling of they could do anything.
So we also talk about this as building a burning desire. So instead of building a system that motivates people from a burning platform or fear and threats, which can work, we don't think it's ethical, but it's widely used, both in leadership and in sales. We think it's much more ethical to help people build this burning desire and then help them get that. And I think that's why we call it satisfaction selling, because when you're moving towards something that's really important to you, something you want to achieve, it's really satisfying. And the closer you get, the more satisfaction is built up in the system. And when you finally get it, it's very difficult for a customer not to become a positive activist, going out and actually helping you get the next customer, because they say, wow, if you can do this for me, then wow, you can. Maybe they can also do it for you, and you, and you, and you, and then suddenly you're not just building a company, you are building a movement. I think that's what we're aiming at.
This is exactly why I wanted you on this podcast, Henrik. This is what we need. If we want a sustainable future, we need to build a movement on top of some values that that can be a part of a sustainable future.
Yeah.
And that goes for every individual, for the planet. Like,
yeah, for me, it have to be interconnected.
Yeah.
And again, this can sound like very ambitious, but again, I have nothing against people earning money.
No.
And I think again, the more you are actually building this movement, the more you can only do that if you create value for the bigger system.
Yeah.
And I think you are entitled to a part of that value. So again, I think again, I think really that's the center in what we are doing is value creation.
Also reminding people that there's value beyond money. Value in actually helping people achieving their goals, defining their goals.
Yeah.
Making sure that success is something that they have a definition of and not what everybody else thinks that you should do.
Money is not value. Money is an indicator of value.
Yes.
And I think that's important to remember.
Yes. Okay.
It's the same thing again here. Some people are attracted to what we do because they want to be happy. And again, for me, I hate happy. I think if happy becomes the outcome, people get distracted. I think the purpose of what we're doing is to create real value for the customer, for the salesperson, for the organization. If you help people do meaningful things that create value, then trust me, they will be a more happy person. But happy, that's like money, a byproduct of doing the right thing.
Yes, please. I think that we've covered what the future of sales actually is going to look like if you want it to be sustainable. And I think that asking the right questions and putting the customers first is paramount if you want to sustain growth as a sales manager. But for everyone listening or watching, what would you like them to leave with today?
What could be really fantastic is that you ask yourself the question, why are you actually working in the organization you are working in today? And what value are you creating? And if you get to a very good answer, I think maybe you're in the right organization. If you cannot find a really good answer, maybe it's time to find a new job. Life is too short to work in shitty companies.
Yes. I think that will be it, Henrik. I think that's a best way to wrap things up. It's been a pleasure to have you on these 3 episodes, and I don't think we're done yet with these things, and we're actually also doing some LinkedIn live sessions together. If you want to hear more and just get a little bit inspired, then there's much more to come for. Check out the books. I'm enjoying them. I think you would do as well. This is not just about business. This is about personal leadership, personal growth, and living a life according to your values, your true intent. You define your own success. Thank you so much for helping me unfold this. And thank you for listening or watching. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, and stay true. Thank you, Henrik.
You're welcome.
I think that we've covered what the future